What's going on, guys? It's Cimo. So today I'm bringing to you a video on how to build a deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. There's a lot of overwhelming elements when it comes to this game, especially if it's your first time playing. So I want to help guide you through the steps on how you can best use your gems and be able to build a deck that you're going to be happy with, whether to play against friends or play on the competitive ladder. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Before you're going to be doing any sort of deck building, though, I highly recommend that you go and run the solo mode. The reason you're going to want to run the solo mode is because the early game is very generous with providing you with a lot of gems, especially for not much time commitment, and as a result of that, you're going to have a good amount of starting gems to buy some packs without having to spend a single cent on this game. So as you can see here, I've only completed a few elements of the solo mode, but in the dual strategy section here specifically, this is one of the most generous aspects in my opinion, because when you're up here in these practice levels, you're going to be getting 600 gems per completion. That means for all four of these up here in total, that's 2,400 gems, and every 100 gems equals one pack. And you might be thinking, okay, well, 24 packs is good to start with. No, you get even more than that. You can probably get in the neighborhood of over 10,000 gems just playing through these initial story mode moments, and then you're going to have a good foundation to actually build the deck you want to play. So once you've gone and made your way through the solo mode, you're going to actually want to go to the shop next. And the reason for that is because we want to get some starting cards to be able to build the foundation of our deck. Now, it doesn't matter necessarily if we get the cards that we're exactly looking for, because we're going to be able to actually convert some of those cards into actual cards that we want through the Master Duel crafting system. More on that later, though. I want to go ahead and quickly show off the shop and some things you're definitely going to want to pick up on. So over here in the special department, if we go down here to the bundle deals, there's something that is limited one per player that I would highly recommend picking up. And you've already gotten a good amount of starter gems. If you've played through solo mode, you can actually afford to buy all three of these packages. Each of these packages here costs 750 gems, which means in total it's going to run you about, what is that, 2250? So just those four practice modes in the solo mode will be able to cover this just by itself. And the reason you're going to want to pick these up is because by default, it costs 1,000 gems to get 10 packs, and that also guarantees one super rare pull. But these limited packs, that is one per player for all three, not only give you those 10 packs, they only cost 750 gems instead of the typical 1,000, but you're also guaranteed one of these three cards, which are basically staples if you're going to want to play in any sort of capacity. Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring is probably one of the best Yu-Gi-Oh cards printed in the last 5 years and still sees play to this day. We also have Lightning Storm, which is a massive board wipe for either the front row or the back, and Solemn Judgment's just an OG counter trap from back in the day. I would say this is probably the least likely to be played, but in all fairness, it's still 750 gems for 10 packs, which is a far better rate than if you were just buying 10 packs relatively. So after you've gone and purchased those bundles, you should have opened up all the packs and have a fair amount of cards to work with in your starting card pool. So we're going to want to go now into the deck section, and this is where we're going to get started. Now, in the plus sign here, we can go ahead and either create a new deck, or we have two options to create from a public deck or create from a structure deck. Now, as you're going through the solo mode, you actually unlock structure decks that you're able to then play and get the cards from, so you can use one of those structure decks as a foundation. I'm going to go ahead and quickly show off the copy from public deck first, because this is a nice shortcut if you already have an idea of what you want to play. So let's say you want to play, I don't know, a Dark Magician deck, right? What you can actually do is here up in the search bar, if you want to go ahead and type Dark Magician, or if you're a peasant like me and have to actually do this on Xbox, which is miserable, you can go ahead and search, and the premier card of the deck that people are playing is going to be shown here. There is a Dark Magician deck right here. Let's take a look at this one just for, argument's sake. Maybe this is the type of deck you want to play. This looks pretty decent. I would say this is actually a fairly, good starting foundation for a Dark Magician deck of sorts. And what you actually can then do is you can copy this deck to your decks. And by doing so, this actually will then give you everything available, not to immediately play with, but think of it like a template or a blueprint of the cards that you need in order to be able to actually play with that deck once you acquire those specific cards. If, however, you already know the type of deck that you want want to play with, you can actually just go ahead and create a new deck altogether, which will open up the deck editor and it's going to be completely blank. So as you can see here, there's a lot of cards for us to be working with, and we can go ahead and sort by the ones that we actually already own. And on the side here, you can just start adding cards at will. They just immediately go into your main or extra depending on what you have. And if you have multiple copies, like in this case, I have 2 copies of Ryza, I can immediately add those to my main deck as well. I would say it's probably more efficient time-wise to go search for a deck that already is like a template for what you want to play, because then you only have to switch around a few cards instead of typing every single card you want from scratch. Definitely saves a lot of time. So now I'm actually going to go ahead and get out of this deck that we built here, and we're going to go ahead and go to one that we're actually working on for a separate video, because it's a deck that is actually fairly budget for anyone who wants to play free to play, and I want to use this just as an example for how you can actually craft the deck. So once you have the template or the recipe for the deck that you want to play, this is what your screen is going to look like. As you can see, cards like Lightning Storm and Ash Blossom, which were in those packs that I bought previously, are full color and not translucent, meaning I actually already own these cards. But the majority of this deck, as you can see, is actually, you know, grayed out a bit, right? The opacity on the cards is a bit lower, indicating that I don't have those cards yet. So I'm not actually able to go and play with this deck, but I have the deck in theory mapped out for what I want it to look like. And if I wanted to add cards here that I also don't currently have in my collection, I could go ahead and do that if I wanted to. So now the question is, Cimo, how do I actually get the cards I want for these particular decks? Well, it's actually pretty straightforward. There's a couple things you can do. So let's say, for example, we want to go ahead and get a copy of this Tri-Brigade Nerval up here. We can actually go ahead and highlight the Nerval and go up here to how to obtain. This is going to show us all the different ways we can actually obtain this specific card. So as we can see, it comes in the Master Pack, it comes in Echo Chamber Nation, which is a pack that we currently have locked, but it also comes in the pack Stalwart Force, and we can actually go and immediately buy that if we so wish. But there's also another way to obtain these cards as well, and this is where all those other packs that we purchased when we got the Ash Blossom, the Lightning Storm, and the Solemn Judgment are going to come in handy. Now, we could go, if we so wished, and actually purchase those packs and unlock these cards, but I'm actually going to go over the Master Duel crafting system. So this card right here, Nerval, is actually designated by an N. I think this is for normal. I don't exactly know what this is for, but as you can see, there's cards with R for rare, SR for super rare, and UR for ultra rare. So I'm just going with the normal rarity here. Now, if we wanted to craft this copy of Nerval, we need to actually dismantle some cards here. So let's go ahead and go over to our collection, and we're going to make our way down to the bottom here because we need to get to the normal cards that we have available to us. What you're able to do in Master Duel is take 3 copies of any card of a similar rarity and disenchant them to be able to make one of a card that we so wish. So let's go ahead, for argument's sake here, let's take this Gaia the Fierce Knight and dismantle it. I know the OG Yu-Gi-Oh fans aren't going to be too happy about that, but as you can see, just from that, up in the top left corner, we now have 10 gems for our normal rarity section here. Let's go ahead and dismantle this Ignite Cavalier while we're at it as well, just for argument's sake. And then let's also go ahead, once that's finished, and take apart this copy. Whoops, I added it to the deck. I actually want to dismantle that copy of Elemental Hero Clayman. So let's do that as well. And that's going to give us a total of 30 of our normal crafting gems. Let's go back into the deck here and actually take this Clayman out. And let's go back to that Nerval we were looking at. We're now able to take those 30 gems that we acquired and generate ourselves a copy of this Tri-Brigade Nerval. And we could actually make multiple copies if we had enough gems, but for the purposes of this video, I'm just crafting a single copy. And this works for every single rarity. So if you want to craft a rare, you just have to dismantle 3 of your rares. Same thing goes for super as well as ultra. And as you can see now, that Nerval is actually full color, just like our other copies of Ash Blossom, Lightning Storm, and the like. And so from here, we can actually dismantle a lot of the cards that we opened in those packs when we bought those 30 packs from the Ash Blossom, Lightning Storm, and Solemn Judgment packs, and slowly start to put together the deck that we actually want, because once you see the different rarities, you can just dismantle cards that you don't want and actually build a deck that you do want and can play with your friends or on the online ladder. To further my point, I'll go ahead and show off another example. Let's go ahead and craft craft a rare this time. So let's go ahead and look at this Adamantipator Resonance. We can dismantle this, and as you can see, this actually is going to give us 10 gems into our rare version of the conversion currency. I think we can go ahead and dismantle this World Legacy Sorrow while we're at it as well. Let's go ahead and then just dismantle Horn of Oliphant, because I don't think we're going to be using this. So let's go ahead and dismantle that. And just like that, we now have 35 gems. I think I had the 5 gems there by default. And so once we remove this from the deck, we can go to any of our rares here. Let's go ahead and go to Book of Moon, which shockingly in this game is at only rare. A lot of the best cards in the game that are generically applicable for most decks, like the hand traps and the like, are going to be at ultra rare. So that is where they get you a little bit. But cards like Book of Moon, Forbidden Chalice, I'll even show you even a card such as Torrential Tribute, which kind of surprised me that this was actually a rare. Once I go ahead and put on just not cards in my own collection, this is a rare as well. So there are some very powerful staple cards at low rarity here. But let's go ahead and move over to this copy of Book of Moon here. As you can see, if we wanted to obtain the Book of Moon regularly, we could either acquire it, actually we can only acquire it through the master pack, so let's not do that. Let's just craft the card ourselves by going like this. We can generate ourselves a copy of the card, and there we go. We now own another copy of Book of Moon. And so we can just slowly start to fill in the slots and build ourselves a deck for us to use, and it really is just that simple. It's nice too because if you are new to Yu-Gi-Oh! And you're not familiar with how to build a deck, because it can be pretty overwhelming at times, you could just go and copy other decks that people have found success with the copy deck feature when you create a new deck, and that way it sort of takes a lot of the legwork out for you, and there's no shame in that. Some of the best decks in the game get copied all the time, and that is how people actually start to learn and get better at the game. So if that is what works for you, then go for it. So before we wrap up the video, I also want to discuss how you can unlock some of those special packs you may have saw when we were looking at some of these cards that were currently locked, because the packs are pretty thematic. I mean, if you're going for cards of a certain archetype, they sort of bundled them all in their own respective packs. So let's say, for instance, we want to unlock this copy of Fire Formation Tenki. This is a super rare, and if we go to the How to Obtain section, we can obviously get it from the master pack, but we can also get it in the pack Guardians of Fire. As you can see, it's currently locked, but there is a way for us to actually unlock it immediately, aside from just, you know, the typical crafting. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and disenchant some super rares here. So let's go ahead and disenchant this Interrupt Resistor, excuse me, because I don't think I want this card. So we're going to dismantle that. This actually gives us 30 gems right off the bat, because I believe it's of a special rarity, and as a result, we now have the 30 gems necessary to craft this card that I just completely took out of my deck. So we'll fix that later. Let's actually just generate the Tenki right now, and once we generate it, we're actually going to get ourselves a special key. As you can see up in the top middle-ish right portion of the screen, there is a key there. So let's go ahead and hit LBRB to see what we actually got, and now we have Guardians of Fire unlocked. We even got a free pull out of it, so you know what? Let's go ahead and just open it and see what we got. I guess we'll end the video on a fun note, right? We can end with a little pack opening action. So let's see what we get. If we get another copy of Tenki, that'd be pretty nice, but I don't think, I mean, maybe we'll get that lucky. Let's see. Okay, so we actually got 2 super rares in here, and the nice thing is we could just go ahead and disenchant those for another super rare that we want, like another copy of Tenki. And so the cycle just continues to go on, and the crafting system is actually very generous in this game as a result. Yes, once you start getting into super high-level constructed competitive decks, you're gonna have to have a lot of ultra rares, but at the same time, if you're wanting to play this free-to-play, it's actually rather generous in that regard. Guys, that's gonna wrap it up for the video. I really hope this was helpful for any newer players looking to get into deck building, because I know it can be quite a daunting task, and especially with the Master Duel system, there is a lot to it, but I hope this video was helpful. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you next time.